Hello everyone, CMeeCraft here, and welcome back to A Light in the Dark. Things are really heating up with the kidnapping situation. We're on to day 3 now. Gap between us. Let's go. Day 3, morning. So cold. I opened my eyes in a daze. From outside of the window, the sunlight splattered across the floor, but even that wasn't enough to remove the gloominess in the room. I tried to stretch my body. The sunlight failed to dissipate the cold, and the freezing air made me shudder. Day 3. I was getting used to the room's moldy smell, but the night was still too cold to sleep properly. My stomach burned from starvation. Not only did I feel worse physically, but mentally as well. After letting me prove my identity through the call, she took the phone outside to prevent me from listening to their conversation. About 10 minutes later, she returned and lit a cigarette. The smoke permeated the air. There was no way for me to know what they had discussed, and all my questions got no response. Father's voice through the phone sounded plain as always. He was more skeptical than nervous. Even after a few questions, he still didn't believe I was kidnapped. I tried to tell him my status, but the phone got taken away before he could make any sense out of it. Maybe he couldn't even recognize his own son. I laughed, ironically, despite my chest being burdened by unease. So what now? Facing the gray ceiling, I tried to figure something out. Tried to communicate, I guess. I don't know. We haven't really come across a great route or opportunity of escape. We've spent a lot of time with conversation. We've got to hope that maybe that can break us through. But again, we don't have a route for escape. I mustn't give up. Rather than taking the risk to escape, I should try to convince them. I mean, maybe at the very least, we can garner enough sympathy from them towards us that in the heat of the moment, they don't kill us and bring us down with them. But things aren't looking great. After hanging out with them during the past few days, I learned that they weren't that difficult to communicate with. I just hoped it wasn't an illusion. I looked around the room and found the little girl sitting next to the wall, surrounded by books from God knows where. The big sis was gone. Based on the door sounds I heard, she probably left around early morning. What time is it? I asked her. She poked her head out from behind the book. This question should be fine for her to answer, right? 7. So early. I never expected time to pass this slowly, especially when I used to be able to sleep until noon and just skip breakfast. I was so bored that I even felt bewildered by the situation. They say time connects with motion. Time under happiness flies, while time under pain lasts forever. There was a sci-fi novel that I read before. I couldn't recall most of the details, but one specific part left quite an impression. It was a nation with a special punishment. They paralyzed criminals' bodies, but kept their consciousness intact. Then the criminals were left in the cell. All they could do was think. Think through eternity, without connection with the outside world. With life support, they could still breathe, but only breathe. I finally understood what that intriguing concept would feel like after experiencing it myself. When you couldn't move your limbs, pain and hunger stood out like a sore thumb. All my attempts to break free failed, and the knot was still tight as ever. Who knew rope could be this durable? There's counterfeit butter and pudding in the market, yet the rope was still this sturdy. The government really should award this sort of top-notch manufacturing. My train of thought only led to another headache, along with my sore throat. Could it be that I caught a cold? Should I reserve my energy to try to talk to her? Let's converse. We've got a decent stamina. I hesitated a little, but decided to talk to her. She might be the easier one to get through to. Or not, I don't know. She doesn't seem to really hold the power here, so even if we do get her on our side, I'm not sure how much that helps in the long run. Aren't you afraid? Of what? Of the cops coming for you. Facing my question, she stared at me in silence. It took her a while to respond. Would they? She asked me quietly. What do you think? Kidnapping someone plus asking for ransom. If that won't get the police's attention, then so be it. We don't want to do this either. We've tried our best. They've done worse things to Big Sis. Like what? She turned her head away and didn't answer. The conversation seemed to depress her. It took quite a while before I heard her behind the books. I am scared. But if Big Sis needs my help, I'll help. If you want to help her, you should let me go. I lost my chance to say this upon seeing her expression, pressing her lips to suppress her fear. Whatever. I shouldn't push too hard on the subject. I convinced myself with an excuse, not fully certain why I decided to stop there. After that, she didn't speak and only indulged herself in the book silently. Anything to eat? I tried to chat with her on different subjects, hoping to figure out some intel. She wrestled around and took out half a steamed bun, then placed it next to me quietly. Crackers first, no steamed buns. They're all cheap foods with long shelf life, yet lacked in appetizing value. The outside was dry, like an air-dried tangerine skin. It was quite hard to chew, and I could barely taste anything in my mouth. I swallowed it down with water and started to miss the American brunch from a few days ago. The craving made me sigh in despair. Is it that bad? Yeah, it would be much better if there was a fried egg with pepper. She stared at me surprised and only opened her mouth a little while later. You know how to cook? Sort of. Just simple stuff. Always had some simple ingredients ready since I lived alone. If I was lazy, I just cooked some instant noodles plus a fried egg and called it a meal. Most of the time, I just put everything from the fridge into the crock pot. I didn't really care as long as they were cooked and filling. What, is it strange? Seeing her hesitation there, I asked. I thought you'd have someone cooking for you and bringing meals to your room every day. Like a butler. You've watched way too many soap operas. I didn't stay in a hotel with that kind of service or anything. My breakfast is usually just a sandwich, bread, or onigiri from the breakfast shop, like regular folks. Oh. Realizing how mundane my breakfast was, she responded disappointedly. Did she think of me as some playboy millionaire from a movie who spent all day long in bars to hook up with chicks? How about tea parties? Right, before I could explain myself, she threw me another ridiculous question. Tea parties? I repeated the word and confirmed that I didn't hear wrong upon seeing her nodding. Okay, so if my ears still functioned and I didn't misunderstand her, she was referring to a traditional British afternoon tea. Like those things with 3 layers. From bottom to top, you had sandwiches, scones, and cakes. You tasted them in that order, too. Taste aside, that just sounded like a giant pain in the ass. Never tried it. I didn't even hear of it that often. In a magazine, they said rich people invited friends over with lots of food and tea. Right. I know what tea party means. So no tea parties for you? Nope. Ignoring her curious look, I replied without hesitation. Why? Making tea and buying cake is a ton of work, and you have to clean up the mess after inviting people over. Too much trouble. I didn't even talk to my family much, so the whole idea of us having a happy afternoon tea time was just unimaginable. No one prepares it for you? No one hired someone just to make tea for this sort of luxury stuff. Wouldn't it be more convenient to have it in some cafe? She quietly lowered her head, as though pondering my words. Do you by chance think my house is some fancy mansion with many servants and all I need to do is ring a bell? Oh dear. I was just kidding, but based on her reaction, I was right. I live by myself in a 300 square foot condo. I do my own laundry and cleaning, plus chasing the garbage truck to throw away the trash from time to time. But aren't you rich? My dad is, not me. It might make no difference for them, but I corrected her nonetheless. Also, being rich and being wasteful are 2 different things. One should do things by oneself if possible. Why? Why what? The quiet girl started to talk and ask me question after question with much curiosity. Unlike her big sis, there was no hatred or mockery in her eyes, just pure curiosity. If I had money, I would live in a big house and hire many people to cook and clean. Is that so? For me, I just need a place big enough to live. I didn't even have that many friends, so what was the point of all these fancy desires? Besides, the bigger the house, the harder to clean. Hiring someone to do it would be an extra expense. There's no point in troubling myself like that. If they did everything for you, then what would you do? She stumbled slightly upon my question. Clearly it had never crossed her mind before. Just rest? Rest forever? If you have everything done for you, you'll become nothing but a useless waste of space. She tried to explain, but lowered her head like a wrecking ball. I don't know. I think that went quite well. Suddenly, I understood the source of all these deep-rooted enmities. False imagination. For them, I enjoyed a comfortable life with no effort, while they got trapped in poverty despite their best efforts. Envy and depression accumulated and eventually turned into anger and hatred. False imagination came from all the rumors and media portrayal, picturing the rich as people crashing into others while drunk or high after having crazy parties. At the end of the day, the news media just wanted provocative news. The fancy car killing someone was always more marketable than a cheap-ass one causing it. Integrity has nothing to do with wealth. There's no lack of rich people having a rather simple life, but you just never see them in the news. They do whatever they can to produce things people want to see. public media code of integrity. That doesn't mean jack shit in the audience-driven era. What about the truth? Neither the journalists nor the audience care. We see what we want to see. Despite knowing this full well, we still choose not to resist it. So what now? Okay. What chatting options do we have available? What do you picture me as? Where did your big sis go? You really believe in her. Why me? Who are you? What do you picture me as? Yeah. What do you figure me as? Having no idea how much they misunderstood, I couldn't help but ask. Her answer was surprisingly simple. A rich person? Remembering all the past conversations, I sighed helplessly. I think you must have quite a misunderstanding about rich people. Rich people aren't all bad people. She looked at me silently, not really believing me. Try to judge for yourself. Yeah, try to judge for yourself. I don't think attacking the big sis is a good idea here. She still cares deeply about her, I think. Anyways. I don't know what news you've seen or what your big sis has told you that makes you think all rich people are bad. But what have I actually done? Do you think everything she said is true? Try to judge for yourself with your own eyes. I tried to convince her subtly. If she could understand, then perhaps I could get out of here without much risk. I don't know. She refused my glance and didn't want to hear more from me. I sighed lightly. If I couldn't change her mind right now, then I had to wait for another chance. What now? Okay. Any other compelling chatting options? Where did your big sis go? Who are you? Why me? You really believe in her? Where did your big sis go, I think? Where did your big sis go? I don't know. I tried to start a conversation and still made no progress. Don't you care at all? Big sis asked me to guard you and that she would be back soon. The girl calmly lowered her head, as though living in her own world, without one bit of anxiety or guilt as a criminal. Aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? Of being found by the cops? Of being found out by the cops. I don't think planting in her, trying to get her to entertain the idea of big sis betraying her is the winning strategy here. Anyways, what if the cops find you? Saying, I don't know, won't cut it. She pressed her lips and said nothing. There was some hesitation in her expression when she stared at me. As advanced technology has become, there are surveillance cameras everywhere. It's only a matter of time before they find out. No matter how good your big sis is, she won't be able to protect you by that point. She's trying to open her mouth, but paused a little, and then swallowed the words. Give it some thought. It seemed like she did care, but just somehow suppressed her anxiety. Compared to her big sis's stubbornness, she might let me go if I pressured her more. So what now? Anything to observe? I'm just kind of curious about this. Is this the door? That's a wardrobe, okay. It is a wooden wardrobe closet of a certain age with a nasty moldy smell. The ravages of time really messed up the door, as though one kick would totally shatter it. In the end, I made no progress. She didn't know what was going on, nor was she willing to contact her big sis for me. And I felt horrible. My fluctuating body temperature confirmed my theory that and the muscle soreness indicated a fever. Shit. Getting sick now of all times. I couldn't even stay awake, let alone escape. The girl was still reading a book next to the wall, having no clue about all the ideas floating in my mind. She was by herself with the knife, only a few steps away. My hands were still tied up, but I could still move them a little. I could call her over and knock her out and cut the rope loose. A sense of unease surfaced along with all sorts of possibilities in my mind. What if she dodged it? What if the door is blocked? Could there be someone else? I didn't see much of a chance to succeed, nor have any idea where to start. I also might end up hurting her accidentally. She didn't seem to know what she was doing, nor had she actually threatened me. I should avoid violence against her unless I had no choice. I made up my mind and started to think of other options. Big sis? Huh, what? Hearing the girl's voice, I came back to my senses and realized she was staring at me. All sorts of ridiculous ideas intertwined in my brain. I shouldn't make any rushed decisions with this messy mind. Do you hate Big Sis? Who would like their kidnapper? It's not like I had Stockholm Syndrome. I wanted to reply like that, but I kept it down. It didn't matter what I thought. I had to come up with a response that would make her drop her guard based on what she wanted to hear. Saying that I like her might be too much, so I should reply with... I don't know. I don't know. She just looked at me after my response. Silence spread across the air like a wall between us. I don't really know her, so I can't say if I like or hate her. I see. Big Sis is not a bad person, really. She hugged her knees as though trying to convince herself. The quiet voice seemed to lack some confidence. We just wanted to pay off the debt. We don't really want to do this. The girl's eyes, under the bangs, were as clear as a lake's surface, void of any deceit. She never suspected her sister of any other motive, or simply using her. After all this, she still chose to believe in Big Sis and tried to defend her. Why? Seeing her desperation, I only felt emptiness. She worked so hard to make money, but they kept coming to her for more, even though it has nothing to do with her. She was still murmuring her explanation, yet it annoyed me, like tinnitus next to my brain. Even though she genuinely wanted to persuade me, even though her big sis might have her reasons, I felt nothing. She might not realize, but I just didn't care. I wanted to escape and return back to my normal life. I didn't care if this big sis was a good or bad person, or had a miserable past. Why she committed this crime had nothing to do with me. Seeing her serious expression, I opened my mouth, but swallowed my words eventually. I sighed lightly. I couldn't tell if I envied her naiveness or hated my cold heart. So what now? Okay, I've got 3 actions. What do we have for chat? Let's go for you really believe in her. You really believe in her? Yes. Big Sis is not a bad person. She nodded without hesitation, not realizing she was the one locking me up here. If that didn't count as a bad person, then Standard was just way too loose.
She wouldn't really harm you. She will let you go when she gets the money.
Oh, really? Not the first time I heard it from her, but I still don't know where that confidence came from.
Yes, she promised me.
Do you believe in anything she says? Do you just believe in anything she says? I asked in disbelief, even though she was still young. Such blind trust was far too ridiculous. Not harming me? Where do you think I got all these injuries? By accidentally hurting myself? She stared at me with pressed lips, but couldn't deny my words. What now? Okay, do we have any other compelling chat options? Who are you is interesting. That indicates kind of a bit more... I like it. Who are you? Who are you? A bit late, but I think better late than never. She silently looked at me, showing no desire to talk. Are you a student?
I don't go to school.
She shook her head, still not really interested in talking to me. I looked at her. She must be underage with such thin arms and a slender body. Do your parents know about this? Do they allow you to do such a thing? She pressed her lips and shook her head. Feeling the mood was too heavy, I decided to talk to her a little later. Alright, we have one more action. Any other interesting chat options? Why me? It's interesting. I think we may just actually rest here, recover some stamina, just in case that comes up later. I feel fine. After I rest, I should ask for more information. Day 3, noon. I'm not sure if we missed our opportunity. My cloudy consciousness gradually cleared. It looked like I fell asleep without noticing. The sky outside of the window was dyed crimson. The freezing wind brushing against my cheek made me tremble. I didn't know how long I had slept, but my body showed no signs of recovering. The rope cut into my flesh like ant bites. My struggling out of annoyance only led to torn skin. What time is it?
5.
The girl was at the same spot, quiet, like a delicate porcelain doll.
Why do you keep asking me the time?
'Cause that's all you'll tell me, right? Knowing the time wouldn't change anything, but the sense of cluelessness was just unbearable. Shit, my head hurt. She was not a good conversation partner, but I tried anyway to keep myself awake. If you buy me a coffee, I can give you all the money I have. My heavy head made me say the most random of things like a drunk man.
You like coffee?
She raised her head and stared at me with curiosity. That big sis would have shut me up, but she at least chatted with me here and there. Nothing is more pleasant than drinking coffee in this weather. Well, except the hot bath.
I don't. Too bitter.
You learn how to enjoy it. Different coffee beans have different tastes. How you prepare it is also a factor. Filter drip isn't real coffee at all. Only pour-over coffee can bring out the fragrance. There's something wrong with those latte lovers. The only proper coffee is black coffee. You may as well just drink milk. Hearing all my critiques, she made a comment.
You really like to talk.
Do you have a better alternative? Facing my question, she started to contemplate seriously.
Just sleep?
She spoke timidly, as though fearing that I would scold her. Great idea. Please let me know how to just sleep, with my hands tied and my body hungry and cold. I don't think I need to voice that. I started coughing before I could respond. I didn't even have the strength to joke around. If this kept up, I would cough myself to death before they killed me. Living like this was worse than death. I called this line from a book and found it super fitting. The girl stared at me for a while, then came over carefully with the knife. Don't you worry. I couldn't resist even if you were empty-handed. Ignoring my mockery, she partly squatted before me. I then felt her slightly cold touch.
You have a fever.
Thanks for telling me. Is that it? Thanks for telling me. Realizing I was mocking her, she frowned unhappily, not sure what to do. Are you happy now? I don't know why, but the more they show their concern, the more I found the annoyance unbearable.
What do you mean?
Don't you want to see me suffer? What a tasteless hobby.
We don't.
Ignoring her explanation, I closed my eyes to rest. That may have been the wrong choice. Or maybe not, I don't know. Day 3, night. There was the sound of the bike's motor outside of the window. The girl raised her head sharply and ran out to welcome her big sis. I had no idea where she'd been. The girl's hair was still messy, and she held plastic bags from a convenience store in her hands.
I'm back. Is everything alright?
Big sis. The little girl worriedly explained the status of my body. The big sis frowned upon hearing it.
Okay, I will take care of it. You should eat something now.
After calmly patting her little sister's head, and asking her to take the plastic bags, the girl coldly looked down on me.
So, what's wrong with you now?
Who knows? Food poisoning, maybe? Not wanting to show my weakness before her, I gathered my strength to reply.
If you can still joke around, it probably isn't too bad.
The smell of cigarettes from her made me dizzy. She covered my forehead with the back of her hand, then checked my body temperature in a much rougher way than the little girl.
What a fragile body you have here, rich boy. Can't take some wind?
Don't you know I'm delicate? Yes. Don't you know I'm delicate? Please take good care of me. I spoke without thinking. I was so tired to care if that would trigger her.
Why you?
Seemingly more frustrated than angry, she pressed her lips and started to check the ropes on me. Rope is pointless now. I can't.
Just shut up. If you can't even say the full sentence.
Noticing I couldn't even breathe from the coughing, she left these words, but also loosened her grip. You should care more about me spreading disease than escaping.
I'm not a greenhouse flower like you. The sort of cold is nothing. I still have to work, even with a fever. If I take a day off, I might just lose my job the next day. You have no idea, right, rich boy?
I had no idea, nor did I give an F. I didn't pick the job for you, so what was the point of complaining about that to me? It was hard to keep your emotions under control when you felt horrible. I decided to change the subject to avoid an argument. Did my dad pay?
Why would I keep you here if he did? Do you think I like tying you up?
They did make contact yesterday, so they should have been discussing the details of the ransom. Ignoring her provocation, I forced myself to focus on the intel at hand. Common ways were money transfer or cash in the bag. However, money transfers could be traced and physical cash was difficult to arrange. I heard some kidnappings used Bitcoin or other virtual currency instead, more secure and flexible than cash. Even a high school with a bat could kidnap someone. The question was how to get out of the situation.
Save your breath and just rest. I have no desire to call a doctor if you pass out.
Thanks for the heads up. She had a point. I shouldn't find more things to torture myself with outside of just my body. I tried to lean back and let the wall take some of the weight. This was more comfortable pose than what I had in the past few days, but it only made me feel just a tiny little bit better, far from having a good rest.
Sis, can I have all of these?
The girl took out all kinds of food from the bag, bread, cookies, and steaming hot udon. The smell only made my headache worse.
I already had dinner, so you just dig in.
She replied softly, treating her in a totally different manner. Hey, it is one thing to not share your food, but of all the foods you could pick... The little girl stopped moving her chopsticks and looked at her sister with a pleading expression as though asking her what to do.
Isn't it only fair? We were eating instant ramen when you were having a feast. There's no way these sorts of cheap foods are to your taste.
What the hell? Hearing her nonsensical accusation, I was too exhausted to retort.
What? Say something?
I've had enough. The fierce headache took away the last of my patience. Her provoking expression finally made me lose control of my emotions.
Right. I am the rich boy who lives in a giant mansion, rinses my mouth with expensive wine, and has dozens of maids and butlers. A snap of my fingers and someone will bring me whatever I want. I smash the plate to the ground after 2 bites, then whine about what kind of crap this is. Someone drives me to school every day. I have LV bags and Rolex watches. All my accessories from top to bottom cost millions of dollars, and your poor ass can never, ever even afford one of them. How's that? Is that what you have in mind?
There's no thought behind those words, just my accumulated rage and frustration coming out like a flood. I was tired of this conversation. There was no middle ground. They forced their imaginative perception upon me and totally ignored what they had seen. You don't know shit about me, nor do you give an F. From the very beginning, you've decided to hate me just because I live a better life than you. All rich people should die. All of them are trash that can't help themselves from running over people with their fancy cars, right? So cut the bullshit if you don't know anything. The blood all rushed to my head. I was close to passing out from the headache, but yelled at the top of my lungs anyway. The room echoed with my sound. The little girl curled up next to the wall with a scared expression, as though I wasn't tied up.
Are you effing kidding me?
Her eyes flashed with raging fire, and then she yelled back at me with equal force. Unlike the weakness the little girl showed, the big sis stood up forcefully.
Have you ever felt hungry? Ever worried where to sleep at night? Ever had someone burst open your door to collect debt? I don't know shit about you. Then what the F do you know about me, huh? Do you know what we were dealing with when you were going to school? Or when you were sleeping? That's why I hate your lot. By what right can you live like that? By what right can you speak like that? You don't care about us, because it is none of your business.
Yes, it isn't. I didn't care what would happen to me. I just wanted to vent all my frustration from my chest. So, should I feel guilty for Siberian refugees? Feel responsible for ISIS? Give me a break. Why should I feel responsible for your life? Why should I kneel before you and apologize? I have nothing to do with your poverty.
And it is my fault.
Her raised fist smashed against the wall. The girl's roar was mixed with sobbing. Her voice echoed through the room. Everything seemed to stop at that moment. Her face was twisted with rage, with lips turned blood red from biting. I could also see her hand tremble.
You think I enjoy this? You think I don't want to live better? I effing wish I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Why can some people have a comfortable life without doing anything? Why does my life have to be a living hell? Tell me!
Facing the girl's emotional accusations, I couldn't respond immediately. It was neither of our faults. It wasn't even about any individual, but something that was decided before our birth. No reason, no explanation. The world is just not fair. Remember what she said before? I repeated it. Hearing that, the girl burst into laughter. It sounded relaxed, yet mocking. A mysterious, crazy laughter.
Yes, the world isn't fair. So none of us should complain about what happens in this goddamn world, right?
Not able to find any words, I averted my gaze. Exhaustion took over me once I calmed down. I could barely talk when I leaned against the wall weakly. Chill. Someone might call the cops if you yell this loud. She looked at me over her shoulder, then clicked her tongue unhappily.
Shut up. I don't want to beat up a dying person.
How nice of you. I said half-jokingly, feeling much more relaxed after releasing all my pent-up thoughts. I couldn't focus my eyes anymore. Enduring my fluctuating body temperature, I powerlessly closed my eyes. There's only everlasting loneliness in the darkness. Tired. Cold. How much longer before this was over? Would I be free if I just gave up? Could I just let it all go and sleep forever?
It is hot.
Amidst the cloudiness, an icy cold hand covered my forehead. I had no strength to open my eyes and could only identify the speakers from their voices.
What a pussy. Acting like a dying man just because of a cold.
Easy for you to say. I deserve some credit for remaining sane after being kidnapped and treated like this.
Big sis. Will he die?
Hearing the mumbling from the little girl, I realized how my senses became sharper after I closed my eyes. Even the air temperature felt extra vivid. There was another hand on my forehead, along with the scent of a cigarette.
It takes more than that to kill someone.
Despite her words, there was doubt in her voice. It took a while before I heard her voice again.
Look after him for me. I'll be right back.
I suddenly felt a weight on my body. A soft cotton blanket held in my body heat, making it feel much warmer. I couldn't sense the girl next to me with her gaze, or I could, and maybe even her breathing. My eyes were closed, but I felt her gaze. No. It's probably just my imagination. I couldn't connect the broken thoughts in my mind. I passed out again.
Ah, you're back. Mommy needs to head out and take care of something, so have dinner without me. You can eat whatever you like.
Lies.
If Daddy calls, just tell him I'm in class, okay?
Liar.
Be a good boy, okay?
The laughter of an unknown man, hurried footsteps, and the sound of an engine starting. After removing my shoes, I found myself in an empty living room. I lay down on the sofa. My mind was blank while I stared at the hanging chandelier. I realized now that this house was too big, so huge that it made me feel lonely. Back at the scene of the crime, there's no one in the dark alleyway. The cold moonlight shined upon the fenced construction sites. The criminals always return to the scene of the crime. A foolish notion, but there was no exception. One couldn't bear the self-doubt even when ignoring others' gazes. Was there any evidence left behind? Had the cops started taking action? The girl took a deep breath while lighting up a cigarette. The heavy scent permeated her nose, but wasn't enough to erase the unease. She took out a newly bought cold medicine from her pocket. She wasn't sure why she did that. She didn't care about that boy's survival. She didn't even intend to let him leave here alive. It was only now that she realized murdering someone was not easy. He was no longer just a thing. Once you talked to and touched him, he was a living person. It was time to head back. She decided not to think further. She also hadn't had good sleep for days now, just relied on nicotine and alcohol. But she had to keep going. For the ideal life she and her only family deserved. Ooh, and that's day 3. I hope this all works out, but won't be easy. I look forward to seeing how this continues. And until then, guys, I've been CMeeCraft, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Light in the Dark. Goodbye.